No ID, no record, no past. Yet every Marine on the base snapped to attention the moment the woman stepped through the doors, and none of them knew why. The rain drummed steadily against the reinforced glass windows of the Marine Corps Intelligence Center outside Norfolk, Virginia, as Colonel Daniel Mercer reviewed the morning operations brief on his tablet, expecting nothing more than another routine day of reports, training updates, and security briefings. The building was quiet except for the distant echo of boots in the hallway and the occasional crackle of radios from the command floor. It was the kind of controlled, disciplined environment Mercer had spent 22 years helping maintain. Marines moved with purpose, conversations were efficient, and respect was given only when rank or experience demanded it. That was why the moment the woman walked through the front security doors immediately caught everyone's attention. She looked ordinary at first glance. Medium height, dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail, wearing a gray jacket over plain clothes that could have belonged to any civilian contractor. She carried a small canvas backpack slung over one shoulder, and there was nothing about her appearance that suggested military authority or high-level clearance. No visible badge, no escort, no paperwork. But something about her presence changed the atmosphere of the building the instant she stepped into the main corridor. Gunnery Sergeant Miguel Alvarez had been leaning casually against the wall near the entrance, joking with another Marine about a training exercise earlier that morning, when he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His posture straightened automatically, his shoulders locking into perfect military bearing as if responding to an unseen command. Without hesitation, without even realizing he had done it, Alvarez snapped to rigid attention. The Marine he had been talking to stared at him in confusion, but then, seconds later, the same strange instinct seemed to ripple through him as well. Down the hallway, Captain Logan Reynolds had just lifted a cup of coffee to his lips when he noticed the woman walking toward him. His hand froze. A moment later, he nearly spilled the drink as his body shifted instinctively into the posture of someone acknowledging a superior officer. The reaction made no logical sense. Reynolds didn't recognize her face. She wore no rank. Yet every nerve in his body insisted that this woman demanded immediate respect. As she continued walking deeper into the building, the pattern repeated itself again and again. Marines who had faced enemy fire without hesitation suddenly found themselves standing straighter, conversations abruptly stopping as their instincts forced them to snap to attention. Chief Warrant Officer Grant Hollis, a veteran of 3 deployments who rarely bothered with formalities unless a general was present, felt his relaxed posture stiffen the moment she passed him in the corridor. Even the younger Marines stationed at the communications desk instinctively rose from their chairs. No one spoke. No one questioned it. They simply reacted. The woman moved quietly through the hallway with calm, controlled steps, seemingly unaware of the effect she was having. Her eyes moved carefully from one end of the corridor to the other, absorbing details the way someone trained to assess an unfamiliar environment would. She paused briefly near a wall displaying photographs of past Marine operations, studying them with a distant expression before continuing toward the reception desk. From the glass wall of his office, Colonel Mercer watched the scene unfold with growing disbelief. In 2 decades of service, he had commanded Marines across multiple continents and had seen just about every strange situation the military could produce, but nothing had prepared him for this. These weren't recruits reacting nervously to a senior officer. These were experienced combat veterans responding to someone they had never seen before. It wasn't fear that made them react. It wasn't confusion either. It was something deeper, an instinctive recognition that this woman held authority, even though no one could explain why. Mercer stepped out of his office and moved toward the main desk just as the woman approached it. Corporal Tyler Hayes, the young Marine assigned to the reception station, reacted the moment she stopped in front of him. He jumped to his feet so quickly that his chair rolled backward across the floor and bumped into the wall behind him. His face flushed slightly with embarrassment, but he maintained perfect posture. "Ma'am," Hayes said respectfully, even though he had no idea who she was. "How may I assist you today?" The woman reached into her pocket and placed a small folded piece of paper on the desk between them. Her voice was quiet, but carried a calm authority that made everyone nearby listen carefully. "Please call this number," she said. Hayes glanced down at the paper, hesitated for a second, then looked toward Colonel Mercer, who had stepped up beside him. Mercer picked up the paper and unfolded it slowly. The number written on it immediately caught his attention. It wasn't a local contact. It wasn't a contractor line or a regional command office. The formatting was unmistakable to anyone who had spent enough time working inside secure government networks. It was a direct extension inside the Pentagon. Mercer felt a small knot tighten in his stomach as he picked up the desk phone and dialed the number. The call connected almost instantly. "Office of General Whitaker," a crisp voice answered. Mercer glanced briefly at the woman standing calmly beside him before responding. "This is Colonel Daniel Mercer at the Norfolk Marine Intelligence Center. I have a visitor here who asked me to call this number regarding a matter of national security." There was a pause on the other end of the line that seemed to stretch longer than it should have. When the voice returned, it sounded different, more cautious now. "Colonel," is the woman approximately 35 years old with dark hair and carrying a small backpack. Mercer slowly turned his head toward the woman again. She stood quietly beside the desk, watching him with an expression that revealed nothing. "Yes," he answered. Another pause followed, then the voice spoke again in a tone that made Mercer straighten unconsciously. "Colonel, listen carefully. General Whitaker is already en route to your location. Until he arrives, that woman is to be treated as a priority-level guest under direct orders from the highest command authority. Provide anything she requests and ensure her safety. Do you understand?" Mercer felt the weight of the words sink in as he slowly replied, "Yes, sir." The line went dead. For a moment the hallway remained silent except for the sound of rain against the windows. Mercer set the phone down and looked again at the mysterious woman who had just walked into one of the most secure marine intelligence facilities in the country without identification, credentials, or explanation, and somehow commanded the instant respect of every Marine who saw her. Whatever was happening, Mercer realized one thing with complete certainty. The quiet woman standing in front of him was not just another visitor. And within a few hours, when General Whitaker arrived to meet her personally, the routine morning at the Norfolk base was about to turn into something far bigger than anyone in that building had expected. For hours after the mysterious woman walked into the Marine Intelligence Base, the deep roar of helicopter blades echoed across the compound. A black military helicopter touched down on the landing pad, carrying one of the most powerful generals in the country. Inside the building, Marines who had already heard rumors about the strange visitor watched from the hallways as General Arthur Whitaker strode through the entrance without stopping for greetings or formalities. He didn't ask for reports. He didn't ask who the woman was. He only asked one question: "Where is she?" Moments later, he entered the secure room where the quiet woman had been waiting by the window. The moment he saw her, something happened that stunned everyone present. The general raised his hand and delivered a sharp, formal salute. Not a casual greeting, but the kind of salute given to a respected officer. And the woman returned it perfectly. Because the woman with no ID, no clearance, and no official record wasn't a civilian at all. She was Major Lena Park, a military intelligence officer who had been officially declared dead 8 years earlier after a devastating ambush in the mountains of Afghanistan. Her convoy had been destroyed by an explosion that triggered a landslide, burying the entire team. Search crews found no survivors, and with no bodies recovered, the mission was declared a total loss. Major Park was listed as killed in action, but the explosion hadn't killed her. Local villagers had found her barely alive and secretly nursed her back to health. During her recovery, she discovered something chilling. The attack on her convoy had not been random. Someone had leaked the exact location of her mission before it even began. Someone inside the intelligence network had betrayed her team. Knowing she couldn't trust the system that had already failed her once, Lena made a decision that changed everything. Instead of returning home, she disappeared. For the next 8 years, she lived in remote villages across the region, quietly rebuilding contacts and gathering intelligence while the world believed she was gone. During that time, she helped dismantle several terrorist networks and secretly passed information through a handful of trusted channels. Some of the most successful counter-terror operations of the past few years had unknowingly relied on intelligence she provided. But while she was working in the shadows, Lena discovered something far worse than a single betrayal. The leak that nearly killed her had been part of a larger conspiracy, one involving someone with access to the highest levels of classified intelligence, a man powerful enough to see nearly every operation before it happened. Now, After 8 years of silence, Major Lena Park had finally returned. Not for recognition, not for revenge. She came back for one reason only: to expose the traitor who believed she died in that mountain pass, and finally finish the mission that started 8 years ago. 2 weeks later, the operation reached its final stage in Washington, D.C. Inside a luxury hotel ballroom, filled with intelligence officials and government contractors, a woman in an elegant black dress moved quietly through the crowd. To everyone there, she was Dr. Elena Marquez, a State Department analyst attending the reception. But in reality, she was Major Lena Park, the intelligence officer who had supposedly died 8 years earlier. Hidden in the bracelet on her wrist was a recording device, and through a small earpiece, she could hear Colonel Mercer and his team monitoring from a surveillance fin outside. "Phoenix, we've got you," Mercer whispered. Lena spotted her target almost immediately. Deputy Intelligence Director Victor Caldwell stood near the center of the room, speaking confidently with several officials. The man who had betrayed her mission and sold American intelligence had no idea she was alive. Lena approached calmly. "Director Caldwell," she said politely, "I'm Dr. Marquez from State. I'd like your thoughts on intelligence security in Afghanistan." Caldwell smiled and suggested they talk somewhere quieter. Moments later, they stepped into a private room and closed the door behind them. Lena activated the recorder. "I've been studying the case of Major Lena Park," she said evenly. Caldwell's smile faded slightly. "A tragic loss." Lena stepped closer. "Or a convenient one for someone who leaked her location." Silence filled the room as Caldwell studied her face more carefully. Before he could respond, the door suddenly burst open. Federal agents rushed in. "Victor Caldwell, you're under arrest for treason against the United States." Caldwell stared at Lena in shock as agents moved to restrain him. "You were dead," he muttered. Lena looked back at him calmly. "You should have made sure." Within hours, the rest of Caldwell's network began collapsing as additional arrests were made across the country. The conspiracy that had secretly sabotaged intelligence operations for years was finally exposed. Weeks later, Major Lena Park stood in her Marine dress uniform at the White House as the president thanked her for her service. After the ceremony, she stepped outside where Colonel Mercer and several Marines were waiting. Mercer smiled. "What now, Major?" Lena looked toward the sky for a moment before answering. "There's always another mission." The Marines nodded in quiet respect, because they finally understood why the mysterious woman who walked into their base with no ID, no record, and no past had made every Marine snap to attention the moment she appeared. Some heroes didn't need introductions. Their actions spoke for them.